Canada is burning. We're seeing wildfires not just here in Alberta, but across the country right now. Most recently in Quebec. There's been so much devastation, not just with the amount of homes lost, but also valuable farmland across the country. Now, there are calls coming from Ottawa for a national forest fire service. To chat about this in more detail is political reporter and Sun columnist Brian Lilley, who joins us once again from Toronto. Brian, what would a national forest fire service look like, and is this the direction we should be headed to as a country?
I'm not sure that a national forest fire service is what we need, but I'd agree with the idea of greater coordination, maybe an office to coordinate. Fighting forest fires is, nobody cares about jurisdiction when you're in the middle of fighting a fire, but it is the responsibility of the respective provinces. And also, the equipment needs to be on the ground in those respective provinces, ready to go when fires happen. This year has been incredible, whether we're talking British Columbia, Alberta, not so much in Ontario yet, but there are some. You mentioned Quebec, just outside of Ottawa, there's forest fires burning. My colleague, Brian Passafume, who is on the Hill now, he's an old Alberta reporter. He says it looks like his days of covering Alberta forest fires in Ottawa, and that normally doesn't happen. So this is going on across the country. We're going to have a record year because of so many early fires. And so there's talk of, shall we coordinate in some way? Now, I think there could be an argument made for the federal government having a few pieces of equipment that they can quickly deploy, but they're sort of sussing out what this would mean. Pierre Poilievre, the Conservative leader, has said he's not opposed to the idea of more coordination. He wants more detail of what people are proposing. The Trudeau government hasn't said yes, but again, they're saying, let's think about it. If the idea is a dedicated fire service where you've got forest fires, full-time employed year-round, sitting waiting for a fire to start, that's not a good idea. If you're going to say, all right, well, we need 3 or 4 water bombers that the federal government has, in addition to the resources the respective provinces have, maybe that is a good idea. Maybe that's something that we can look to, as well as an office that once season kicks off, because we know it ebbs and flows, that there is a coordination of, all right, Alberta, you need an extra 200 bodies. We've got them here. Let's help out that way. That might be something that could do. It organically happens already, but if there's a way to make it better, I think everybody would be on side with that.
Yeah, Alberta just brought in another 200 firefighters from South Africa. It's pretty incredible, the help that we're receiving from all over the world right now. Brian, former Governor General David Johnston appeared before the Procedure and House Affairs Committee of the House of Commons. He was asked about his potential conflict of interest in relation to being hired as a special rapporteur looking into foreign interference. What did he have to say?
It was remarkable to watch. Conservative MPs, Larry Brock, followed by Michael Barrett, were questioning him about his relationship. And Larry Brock walked him through all the quotes that both David Johnston and Justin Trudeau had made over the years, interviews, multiple, in 2010, in 2016, in 2017, statements the two of them had made about how close they were. And then just last week, or a week or two ago now, I guess, Johnston saying, well, this so-called friendship. Well, Brock was asking, when were you telling Canadians the truth? On May 23rd of this year, or was it in 2010, 2016, 2017? And Johnston he was very political in his entire appearance before the committee, tried to downplay this relationship again that he'd played up for so many years. And then I believe it was Michael Barrett was asking him about the fact that he hired retired Supreme Court Justice Frank Iacobucci to offer an opinion on whether Johnston was in a conflict of interest. And Barrett said, isn't it true that you and Iacobucci are lifelong friends? And I knew they'd been friends for a while. I didn't realize how long, Hal. They've been friends. Johnston's 81 years old now. They've been friends since, he said, about the age of 25, when they were both young law professors at the University of Toronto. That's more than 60 years, or close to 60 years of friendship. And that's the guy you turn to say, am I too close to this other guy to do the job? That's way too cozy. And then NDP leader Jagmeet Singh showed up and was quizzing him about the fact that he hired a lead counsel who is a major Liberal donor. So it was all far too cozy in what was a very political appearance from a guy who's supposed to be above politics.
And Johnston says we don't need a public inquiry, yet the NDP are calling for one. Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives say we need a public inquiry. Will we actually see one into foreign interference, Brian?
Not unless MPs decide that they're going to force one. Of course, they had the vote last week, and it was 174 in favor, 150 against. All three opposition parties, the majority of the House of Commons, the will of the House of Commons was David Johnston needs to step down, and we need a public inquiry. David Johnston's response was, you're welcome to your opinion, but no, it's not the opinion of the House of Commons. It's the will of the House of Commons. So the government has basically rejected the will of the House of Commons. It's up to the opposition parties to say, we're going to force you to it. Jagmeet Singh has the best hand to play. He's got the confidence and supply agreement or the coalition agreement. He can say to Justin Trudeau, you either call an inquiry or this agreement is off. That doesn't force us into an election, Hal. That just makes the government look for a new dance partner for every piece of legislation they want to pass. It makes the government's life more difficult. They could say, we're going to grind the work of committees and the legislature to a halt until we get a public inquiry. There are a number of steps that they could take. So far, Jagmeet Singh is not showing any interest in that. He has said that he will not force an election over this. That's the last resort, but he's already said he's not willing to go to that last resort. You've just taken your biggest threat off the table, and that tells the government you're not going to be serious. So Justin Trudeau is going to try and ride this out, not call an inquiry, which is what we need at this point, and try and hope people forget about Chinese election interference that helped his party while the House is gone over the summer.
Brian, some people believe that Jagmeet Singh will not pull the plug on the coalition until 2025, until he gets his full pension. What are your thoughts?
Well, I've heard that and I've done the math calculation. He would have to go to February 2025 for his pension to be vested. Look, there was a time when MPs' pensions were gold-plated. For every dollar they put in, we, the taxpayers, put in 4 or 5. It's not that way anymore. It's 50-50, like a lot of pension plans. Now, it's better than the RRSP matching plan that some people have, but it's not what it was. And it's not like he would be getting $100,000 a year. He makes well over $100,000, maybe $180,000, $190,000 a year now. He would be getting a pension, and he wouldn't be eligible for it till he's 55. That's years from now. It might be because after only 6 years, $25,000 a year that he can get 15 years down the road. I don't think that's the main factor. The NDP is weak now. The NDP is not in a good position. Of course, the latest Leger poll for National Post and Post Media showed none of the parties are in a good position. They're all basically where they were. They've all got their regional strongholds. But nationally, they are pretty close to where we ended the last election.
Brian, a shocking story came out related to the Canadian military. Apparently, we cannot afford helmets for soldiers stationed in Latvia. How does this happen?
Bad planning, bad management, bad procurement, incompetence by the federal government. All of the above. Look, I can understand if it was the olive drab boxer shorts that they gave me when I signed up for basic training all those years ago. Oh, well, there's a supply chain problem. You can't get your green boxers or your green Y-fronts to go with your green camo. But sending people into an active operation like Latvia and then saying, but we don't have helmets for you, that's unthinkable. It's not. We're not sending them to Latvia for a bit of a tourism trip. They're not going over to look at the local scenery. They're there because there is a fear in NATO that Russia will try and overrun the Baltic states. That fear has been there for a long time, even before the latest invasion of Ukraine. That's why that operation is there, because Latvia is a NATO member. So we know that there is potential for something to happen, and we're asking our soldiers to do without basic equipment. This is shameful on the government, and they want to quibble over Pierre Poilievre's choice of words when he says it feels like everything's broken. Well, the military's definitely broken. They can't provide basic equipment to soldiers that they want to send into harm's way.
Speaking of Tory leader Pierre Poilievre, Brian, he said that he will block the Trudeau budget from being passed. So 2 questions for you. Why is he doing it? And what is his end game?
He's doing it not for the reasons I described earlier to try and force a public inquiry. He gave a very clear answer to this the other day when he announced that he would put forward as many as 900 amendments to the budget, that they're going to slow down committee, they're going to force votes on different issues. That's how he's going to try and slow down the budget being passed. It will eventually be passed, and the government will be able to force closure, force an end to debate, and force a vote on this at some point. But he's going to make them sweat it for a while. And the reason is they're overspending. As he put it in quoting former Liberal Finance Minister John Manley, the Bank of Canada is trying to hit the brakes on inflation by raising interest rates. Meanwhile, the federal treasury is trying to hit the gas by doing more stimulus spending. Chrystia Freeland's budget that they're trying to get passed right now has a lot of stimulus spending in it. Stimulus spending that we don't need in the economy right now when we've got inflation the way that it's at. Yeah, it's come down from hitting almost 10%, but it's still way too high. There's a good chance we're going to see another Bank of Canada interest rate hike tomorrow. That hurts small businesses. That hurts families with lines of credit, with variable rate mortgages. These are things that are hurting Canadians in the economy. And part of what Poilievre said is we've got to deal with the inflationary spending side now so that inflation is under control by 2025, 26, 27. There is a huge amount of mortgages that were signed several years ago when interest rates were really low, and people leveraged themselves to buy bigger houses. Government kept saying inflation's or interest rates aren't going up. Those mortgages are going to come for renewal, and people are going to find out that they may have $2,000-3,000 more per month just in a mortgage payment. They're not going to be able to afford it. We're going to be in for a world of pain when it comes to those mortgage settlements. Think of the economic pain that would cause straight across the country. If people start defaulting on their mortgages, that becomes a cascading effect. He says we've got to deal with it now. The Trudeau Liberals say you're just stopping people from getting the help they need, and you've got to pass the budget. They don't want to cut the spending. They don't even want to slow the growth of spending in the Trudeau government right now.
Brian, my mortgage is coming up for renewal July 1st. I locked in 4 years ago at 2.79, and right now, just for a 2-year close, I'm looking at least 6%. It's unbelievable what's going on here right now.
And those things hurt people. They hurt people. They hurt families. They hurt businesses. Yeah. And as I said, cascading effect. You've got to decide: am I going to spend that much on my mortgage? Am I going to switch to something else? Am I going to sell? Yeah. These are the things that everyone has to think about, and you end up with decisions that are going to hurt somebody.
Yeah, I'm going to have to bite the bullet because I definitely want to keep our home here. So, Brian, the CRTC is looking at banning Fox News here in Canada, and it appears as though they have quite a bit of support. But let me ask you, will it actually happen?
I hope not. We kept Russia Today on the airwaves for years, and that is actually a propaganda channel for the Kremlin. You'll remember our Sun News days. It was easier to get Russia Today, RT, than it was to get Sun News from some cable and satellite services. That was a bizarre scenario. But we believe in free speech in this country. Fox News, you can love them, you can hate them. They are a point of view, and I don't think they should be banned. By the way, if you want Fox News in Canada, you have to pay extra for it. So you're already being penalized because you got to pay extra money just to get it, unlike, say, CNN, another American outlet that has its own political viewpoint. But I'll say this, it's all being driven by politics. And yeah, you see the headlines that say thousands want this banned. I guarantee you that if I was able to get the CRTC to hold hearings on banning CBC, I could get thousands of people. I could get tens of thousands of people to say, yeah, get rid of them. I don't want them anymore, and I don't want to pay for them anymore. So it comes down to politics. It comes down to partisanship. This is not the type of situation we should have, but a complaint was made to the CRTC. They foolishly decided to go ahead with hearings. We'll see what they decide in a few months' time.
Political reporter and Sun columnist Brian Lilley, thanks so much for joining us today from Toronto.
Thank you, Hal.